What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a top 10 of just random tunes. Let me explain. I'll get into that. It's brought to us by our friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Joseph. Thank you, Joseph. Always appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out the Patreon link below or the patron link on the end screen. So let's let Joseph explain himself here a little bit. He says this list is culled from a list of 100 songs randomly generated from his entire iTunes library, 20,000 plus songs. He said, obviously, I had no idea what it would come up with, and had it selected a load of tosh, I'd have ignored it and done something else, with no one ever being any the wiser. As it was, making selections from the resulting list was interesting. I had a short list of about 18, not including some favorites that were discounted as they're likely to turn up on other more stringently curated lists. I was also keen to feature a few artists that somehow have rarely, if ever, made it to an RTTC video before. The final 10 aren't presented to indicate any preference, but in chronological order, so keep that in mind, which makes even more obvious how 70s dominated it is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's no real surprise anyway. Mainly to leave the epic for last. And yes, I do believe it's the longest song that RTTC has ever tackled. Exciting, right? I don't know if I'd use the word exciting. We're going to have a 26-minute song that ends this countdown. It is the longest song we've ever done. And if you watch the channel, I'm never thrilled with long songs, but you know what? I always have an open mind. So before we get into it, the music will not be in the video, but it'll be a Vimeo link down below. Let's kick this list off with an absolute classic, the Mamas and the Papas, California Dreamin' from the If You Can Believe Your Eyes and Ears album in 1966. Joseph says to start, let's ease ourselves in gently with a stone cold 60s classic. He's not lying there. As with the Beach Boys, I'm not a huge Mamas and Papas fan, but they do have some tracks I truly love. Alongside this one, Monday Monday and Creek Alley spring to mind. The song itself needs no introduction, but can I just say that the quote controversial album cover just makes me go, aren't you Yanks cute when it comes to what y'all manage to find offensive. I found it was inducted in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2001 as number 89 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. It was written in 1963 while John Phillips and Michelle Phillips were living in New York City during a particularly cold winter, and she was missing sunny California. He would work on tunes late at night, and one morning brought her the first verse. At the time, John and Michelle Phillips were members of the folk group The New Journeymen, which evolved, of course, into the Mamas and Papas. They're in their first record contract after being introduced to Lou Adler, the head of Dunhill Records, by Barry McGuire. And thanks to Adler, they sang the backing vocals to California Dreamers with members of the session band The Wrecking Crew on Barry McGuire's album, This Precious Time. See, I did not know that. Adler, impressed with the Mamas and Papas, then had the lead vocal track re-recorded with Denny Doherty singing and paired with the same instrumental and backing vocal tracks and an alto flute solo by Bud Shank, reportedly improvised. The guitar introduction was performed by P.F. Sloan. McGuire's original vocal can be briefly heard on the left channel at the beginning of the record, having not been completely erased. All right, man, I'm going to be straining for that. The single was released in late 65, but not an immediate breakthrough after gaining little attention in Los Angeles upon its release. A radio station in Boston, of all things, was the catalyst to break the song nationwide. 4 in the US, 23 in the UK. Went platinum in the UK, it's over 600,000 sales. Gold in the US, over 1 million. Let's kick this list off with this classic. California Dreamin'. The subject obviously is she's dreaming about California. You understand they wrote it when it was cold and they were in New York. You get all that. I think the brilliance of the song, it is complex in the way it's arranged and produced, right? Because the majority of the song, the line is sung in one channel in your headphone and then it's repeated in harmony by the rest of the group in the other. So that part of it just makes the song really unique. It's obviously been featured in a lot of movies. I mean, that's where I know it from. A little bit more on the flute solo that comes in. You know, we've got chorus, verse, chorus. That's the way this song goes. But in the middle of the verse before the chorus, number 2. Denny Doherty said this. When they were recording that song, they wanted a solo, but didn't want the usual guitar solo. John Phillips walked out into the hall of the Hollywood recording studio they were at, and Bud Shank was in that hallway as well. John grabbed him, brought him into the studio. Shank listened to the hole he was supposed to fill, nailed it on the first take, and wept. I mean, that's legendary right there. This song is just fantastic. Transports you to another time and place. Great way to start the list. Next up, we have Poco, My Kind of Love, a non-album single from 1969. Joseph says, country rock isn't my favorite genre. Mine either. But Poco did it almost first and almost certainly best, but with limited commercial success. This single, which emerged between their first two albums, was written and sung by band leader Richie Furay, the third most famous ex-member of Buffalo Springfield after Stills and Young. Received scant airplay. They were famously told by radio that they were too country for rock and too rock for country, and quickly disappeared into oblivion. It finally got heard by at least a few more people when it emerged on their superb 1990 compilation, The Forgotten Trail, alongside the B-side Hard Luck, the first tune contributed by their then new bassist Timothy B. Schmidt, who would replace Randy Meisner, just as he would 8 years later in the Eagles, where he remains for 45 years later. Tell you what, Joseph likes that trivia like I do. Let's check this out. My Kind of Love. Also some nice production where the vocals were in my left channel and the music in my right for a little while. I like the subject matter of this. I like this song more as it went on. This is definitely not my kind of music. Nothing against Poco and their fans or Joseph. But yeah, not really my thing. I do like the content of the lyrics though, because he's basically talking about they got along when they first started out. Now they've been in this relationship for a while, and like all she wants to do is basically argue with him. Like, I love to hear your voice, but your choice of words just blows my mind, and I'm not fooling because I don't believe in what you see involving me and all your scheming. And he's just, because you're driving me mad with your nagging ways, and with my kind of love, that ain't what pays. I hear you there, brother, man. That does not. It's not what pays. So they just can't get along. So I think anybody who's been in a relationship for a long time can kind of identify with that part of the song for sure. Now we go to the third selection on here, Uriah Heep, Lady in Black from the Salisbury album in 1971. Joseph says written by Heep keyboardist Ken Hensley, who also takes a rare lead vocal on this track. This track from their second album is an early example of the softer side of the band, usually only employed on a track or two at most per album, but became a surprise hit in Germany and has remained a concert staple to this day, thanks to the great story and the ah-ah-ahs, making for a nice bit of audience participation. See, that always helps. I found a brief comment on the cover of the original vinyl release, commented that for Ken Hensley's inspiration was a real case, a surprise visit of a rural vicar's daughter at a moment when he was in a very depressed state. The result of this meeting and some kind of insight was the song Lady in Black, a philosophical parable that tells us that evil cannot be overcome by evil itself. Later in an interview, Hensley said, though, quote, and the girl that inspired it will never know. I saw her through my hotel room window, but we never met. According to Ken, he sang the lead vocals, as Joseph mentioned, because David Byron did not like this song and refused to record it during the Salisbury sessions. Producer Jerry Braun proposed Hensley record the vocals, which he did. It was never released in the UK or US, but remember, it was a hit in Germany. It actually hit on the German charts three different times in the 70s. Lady in Black, you're right, Heep that those go on for like probably a minute, 20 seconds. Really well-written song, right? Really pulls you in because he's talking about this lady in black, maybe a black goddess, somebody coming to him because this man's in the midst of war. And just talking about that, and then verse 2, he basically tells her he wants to trample his enemies to so good prevail. So he actually wants to meet violence with violence. But then verse 3, he changes his heart, right? But she would not think of battle that reduces men to animals, so easy to begin and yet impossible to end. For she, the mother of all men, had counseled me so wisely that I feared to walk alone again, and asked if she would stay. Then verse 4, O lady, lend your hand, I cried, oh, let me rest here at your side. Have faith and trust in me, she said, and filled my heart with life. There is no strength in numbers. Have no such misconception. But when you need me, be assured I won't be far away. Then she just walked away. He said, but now I know I'm not alone. I'll find new heart each time I think upon that windy day. And if one day she comes to you, drink deeply from her words so wise. Take courage from her as your prize. And say hello for me. And then that long chorus. The chorus is the that's the chorus. It appears in different times in the song, but they really stretch it out at the end, obviously. So really good story. I guess he encountered a goddess and it changed his outlook on things, but I really enjoyed that one. Now we have Carolyn Goodbye, or Caroline Goodbye. We'll find out when we get in. There's probably Carolyn, but it could be either way. Colin Blunstone from One Year album in 1971. After the breakup of the Zombies, Joseph says, Blunstone briefly quit music and worked in insurance. Mercifully, he returned to singing, firstly releasing a few singles as Neal MacArthur, including having a hit with She's Not There for a second time, before launching himself as a solo artist proper with this album, produced by his ex-Zombie bandmates Chris White and Rod Argent, both of whom also contributed songs. But this is a self-penned tune, written in the aftermath of his breakup with actress Carolyn Munro, and one of the many highlights from his solo career. All right. Caroline, Goodbye. I read that Caroline became, well, they say a Bond girl, but not really. She's uncredited, just in a scene in Casino Royale back in 1967. So this relationship ended before that because he's just basically writing, saw your picture in her paper, Ma, you're looking pretty good. Looks like you're going to make it in a big way. Oh, I always knew you would, but I should have known better, yeah. And I should have seen sooner, yeah. So he's telling her, I don't know if she messed him over or he messed her over. It doesn't really give you kind of that impression. But whatever happened, he should have known it was going to end. I'm not saying how or where we went wrong. Time changes till we didn't belong. I'm left with warm thoughts of the past. Here's your song to help make it last. I should have known better, yeah, and I should have seen sooner. Really good arrangement here. Great acoustic work at the beginning. Like his voice, like Colin's voice, a lot. So, yeah, I mean, that was a good one. Now we go to one of the three songs I knew on this list, at least off first look. We got David Bowie, Time from Aladdin Sane in 1973. Joseph says, now I know you're familiar with this tune because we have a review of this up. But as the Aladdin Sane review has been up for 2 years, I'm guessing with your busy schedule that you haven't had a chance to hear it in, about 2 years. You're exactly right, Joseph. I don't even remember this tune. Like both you and Trey, this is one of my favorites from this album, but it's a bit of an overlooked gem in the Bowie catalog. I found it was the third single, released just 1 week after the album's second single, Drive-In Saturday. Long story there. Written in New Orleans in 1972 during the American leg of the Ziggy Stardust tour. It's recorded in London in January of 73. The piece has been described as burlesque vamp and compared to the cabaret music of Jacques Brel and Bertolt Brecht, Kurt Weill. Keyboardist Mike Garson said that he employed the old stride piano style from the 20s and I mixed it up with avant-garde jazz styles. Plus, it had the element of show music. Plus, it was very European. Garson's great on this. We actually point that out in the review that we did of this album, and he actually answered that in a comment, so that was cool. Co-producer Ken Scott took credit for the idea of mixing the sound of Bowie's breathing right up front when the music paused, just before guitarist the great Mick Ronson launched into his solo. The phrase Billy Dolls refers to Billy Murcia, late drummer for the New York Dolls. Let's do it. Time, the great David Bowie. You know, I don't even remember this song. How about that? It's greatness, right? Mike Garson's piano work is really, really a highlight throughout this, but the lyricism is fantastic too. David really wrote a fantastic song. Just talking about time, right? Basically, the old cliche, time is undefeated, right? And all the things that time takes from you. Time is always there. Your time is constantly slipping away. Time, he's waiting in the wings. He speaks of senseless things. His script is you and me, boy. He flexes like a whore. Later on he goes, in Quaaludes and red wine, demanding Billy Dolls and other friends of mine, people who have died, right? Take your time. The sniper in the brain, regurgitating drain, incestuous and vain, and many other last names than that we should be on by now. Lie, lie, lie. You're not a victim. You just scream with boredom. You are not evicting time. Then he breathes very heavily. The whole song stops. He's breathing in to that mic, and it really makes you pay attention. It's a very good technique. You'll freeze and catch a cold because you left your coat behind. Take your time. Breaking up is hard, but keeping dark is hateful. I had so many dreams. I had so many breakthroughs, but you, my love, were kind. But love has left you dreamless. The door to dreams was closed. So it just kind of goes on from that. Perhaps you're smiling now, smiling through this darkness, but all I have to give is guilt for dreaming. We should be on by now. And then that lie, 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 lie. And then it goes lie, lie, lie. Yes, time, and ends. But a really well done song. Over 5 minutes long, takes you on a nice little journey. We are halfway done with this list. Next track, The Hollies, No More Riders, a non-album B-side in 1974. Joseph says, I still have one or two airs of Hollies A-sides to bring at some point, but this was a flip side to one of the biggest of those, The Air That I Breathe. This one was written and with a lead vocal by Terry Sylvester, Graham Nash's replacement. I'm not sure how this missed the cut on making the album. The only thing I can think of, it was the album marking Alan Clark's return to the band, so they probably wanted to focus on his vocals. A pity, as it would have been an album highlight in my book. Then again, I've always been a sucker for a minor key. No More Riders, The Hollies. The highlight of this for me was the guitar work. Fantastic on the story of the song. This girl got messed over by somebody and it burned her, and she's never going to let anybody get close again. And he's kind of telling her, I'm not going to do that to you. But, you know, the ambiance of the guitar work and stuff sets out of this kind of broken girl. So I thought that was a good effort. Now we're up to Kansas, the song The Devil Game from Song for America in 1975. Joseph says at the time of this, the sophomore and proggiest Kansas effort, Kerry Livgren was still on his journey through various philosophies and religions. See album closer Incom Rudo, Hymn to the Atman, before finally and famously landing on Christianity. we've got a Kerry Livgren top 10 up on the channel, brought to us by another patron, Scott, that covers this more in depth. So this early biblical themed warning against temptation from the band actually comes from the pen of Steve Walsh, who would ironically depart the band after Livgren's conversion, and as the band became increasingly too CCM for his liking. Though the music was co-written with bassist Dave Hope, who would follow Livgren into born-again Christendom. I love the lyrics, especially the flash of humor that comes into play when considering just what Satan might tempt you with, while musically it's one of the heavier tunes the band ever did. All right, The Devil Game, a well-written song. Really like the lyricism. The music itself, I mean, Joseph knows this. I'm not a prog guy, and this is not going to convert me to being a prog guy, so it just really wasn't for me, but the message of the song is pretty good. Lying, hate, and pain, all part of the devil game. Got his foot inside the door. But you can't let him use you anymore. Take, he will take, he will take. Give him nothing, he'll take, take, take. He will give nothing, but he'll take. And just Satan, leave me lonely. I've got books that say the good man's golden. A pretty well-written song, but instrumentation is just not for me. Now we'll go to the last song I knew on here. Eddie Money, Two Tickets to Paradise from the Eddie Money album in 1977. Joseph says his albums often fell on the patchy side of things, perhaps none more so than his debut, but the Money Man was a cracking singles artist and this still ranks as one of his best. It went to 22 in the US, 14 in Canada, but it became iconic with Eddie, right? I only know a few Eddie songs. Seemed like a super nice guy. I've never listened to one of his albums, but I do know this song. Two Tickets to Paradise. Actually, man, I don't know if I've ever heard this song like in its totality. I just know, obviously, that chorus is the highlight of this song. The rest of it's much more chill than I would have thought it would have been, but who knows? He's just telling his girl he's got 2 tickets to paradise. Will she run away with him? I mean, I don't think there's a lot to the lyrics, but that chorus is just iconic. It sounds fantastic. So Eddie Money got a good story behind him. Was a New York City cop trainee, just like his dad and his brother and his grandfather, but they wouldn't let him keep his hair long. So he said he couldn't see being in the force for 20 years. So he quit the force, which his dad then ripped up his Jimi Hendrix posters. And his band had fired him because they didn't want a cop in the band. So he moves to L.A. The rest is history, man. But, a really good tune there. And we got 2 songs left. We got Dare, the Rain Dance from the the Silence album in 1988. Joseph says there aren't a great many British AOR bands album-oriented rock, if you don't know what AOR stands for. But Dare's debut might be the best of the ones that do exist, if we exclude Magnum's AOR period at least, thanks to great songs and immaculate production from Mike Shipley and at the time, Mr. Joni Mitchell, Larry Klein. Dare, who continue to this day and released a new album this year, 2022, when I'm filming this, never made another one like it. They faced record company pressure to move to an ill-advised hard rock / hair metal sound for their sophomore effort before settling on a more Celtic-inspired sound for subsequent releases. I guess these guys did everything, huh? But leader keyboardist vocalist Darren Wharton noted in a 2016 interview that the Celtic influence was there from day one, including on this track, Out of the Silence, was quite Celtic in some of its stuff. You know the Rain Dance and King of Spades. You know I spent my early career with Thin Lizzy, so that rubbed off me a great deal working with Phil Lynott and Scott Gorman. And those Irish roots and Celtic roots where I live in Wales, it's a very similar type of genre of folk music. So I always felt a sort of connection with that sort of music. And I'm half Welsh, so there's a bit of Celtic in me, end quote. Joseph says the album didn't chart, but yielded 3 minor charting singles, of which this was the biggest at number 62. And I'm not sure, Joseph says, if he's at all well known in the US. He's incredibly famous over here in the UK. But before he became physicist, TV presenter, and professor, Brian Cox was the band's second keyboardist here. All right. Don't know Brian Cox. I know Brian Cox, the football player, the retired football player. I know Brian Cox, the actor that's in Succession. But I do not know this Brian Cox. Let's check it out. The Rain Dance Dare. A little odd production there, right? On the fade out. It was kind of like it didn't like slowly fade him out. He was just singing them like did the volume cut out and then it just goes away. So I think this whole song actually suffered a little bit production-wise because I thought that the keys, the synth, was a little bit too loud compared to the vocals. But a good song, man. It did remind me, dare I say, I don't want to say this and, Joseph get upset, but, Magnum, little Magnum inspired, but I did enjoy that. I mean, the Rain Dance, they're going to dance for the memory forever and ever. Yeah, that's how it ends. I mean, they're working along. They're working on a tightrope wire. They push me down, but I won't fall down. Or they push me, but I won't fall down. They're flying, but I walk much higher. And still we never leave the ground. So, I mean, just all an illusion there. There'll always be tomorrow. There'll always be another day. And our hearts will still be singing. And the sound will show the way. No dancing on the factory floor. They hold me, but we won't stand still. We'll never see the sun no more. I guess we never will. So a good song there. I enjoyed that. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The moment that maybe you've been waiting for, but honestly, I have not, in all transparency. We got Neal Morse, Seeds of Gold, from the Testimony 2 album in 2011. Joseph says Morse is the king of the prog epic and pretty much single-handedly invented Christian prog, it seems. Though Joseph says he'll defer to Scott as the RTTC expert on such things. Another one of our patrons that brings great Christian countdowns. And whether it's solo, with Spock's Beard, or Transatlantic, the prog supergroup where I first encountered him, he says Marillions bass player Pete is in that group. He is responsible for the 14 longest songs in my collection, and this is only the 13th longest of those. Steve Morse, no relation, contributes a stunning guitar solo here. Neal later stating in an interview that, quote, when I originally wrote Seeds, I wrote it with Steve in mind. That's why I put that long solo in there so he could stretch it out. Now live, I'm the one who gets to stretch it out. He wasn't joking, Joseph says. I saw him on his tour and his own solo is jaw-dropping. Right? Buckle up. I think the world of Joseph. I don't know why he would do this to me, man. 25 minutes and 59 seconds. Like, this is not technically a 26-minute song. This song in itself is only 4 minutes shorter than the Beatles' debut album. So, all right, well, buckle up, as Joseph said. All right, Seeds of Gold. I got to look at my notes, man. I had to take notes because, I mean, this is like a full album side. Or it could be like a full album. Good bass at the start of this. I thought music starts at about the 4:33 mark. It ends with the guitar solo, and I think that's a good way to do it. It hit it about 1950, I think. I didn't take notes of that. But good lyrics. I mean, it's about Seeds of Gold. It's about, going to heaven and different illusions there. One thing I liked about it, because in some stuff that's proggy, you get a little bit of lyrics and then it'll just be instrumentation the rest of the way. They mixed the vocals in there enough that it kept my attention. It's hard to break down a song. Neal was the producer, the composer, guitars, synth, piano, organ, and vocals. Obviously, Steve Morse's guitar solo is the highlight. But Randy George on the bass and Mike Portney on the drums are putting in the work most of the song. So it's an epic song. For being a prog rock song, it's really good. Very respectful to the genre, all jokes aside. It's just not my thing. I could see putting this on if you're on a long drive or maybe even a workout and you just wanted something on there. For me, just to sit around and listen to this, I would absolutely never do that. But it's not a bad song. So, for all the build up to it that I gave it, all the fake hype, it wasn't bad at all. That's going to bring me to my favorite tracks. Honorable mention, Colin Blunstone, Caroline Goodbye, and Uriah Heep, Lady in Black. Faves, it's going to be kind of predictable. We're going David Bowie, Time. We're going Eddie Money, 2 Tickets to Paradise. And the Mamas and the Papas, California Dreaming. And that kind of goes with my theory of, I knew those 3 songs, so they end up as my favorites, right? So it just goes with, first reactions are tough. The more you hear a song, the more you hear an album, the more you like it usually, right? Especially if you like it somewhat on first listen. So I'm sure some of these others would grow on me. So thank you to Joseph for bringing this list. Let me know your thoughts below. Thanks everybody for watching. Until next time, I will see you.